Hello, so in today's video I wanted to talk about Harriet and the recent episode of RWBY. So if you haven't seen episode 13 Worthy, then be warned, there are spoilers ahead. So the reason this video has come about is because I really just wanted to talk about Harriet, and it is surprisingly hard to find any topics to talk about regarding her or really any of the Aesops. So quite frankly, I'll take what I can get. But also it's actually a perfect time to theorize what may happen because I think there is a very great opportunity to be had here between her and Qrow. So just to refresh your mind, in the latest episode, we learned the reason Harriet has been so gung-ho about standing by Ironwood's side is because she takes a lot of her beliefs and ideology from Clover. She believes him to be a very loyal individual, accentuated by the fact that he even died carrying out his duty. She holds an unbelievably high view of him and tries to replicate it in her actions as well. Admittedly, this was a surprising development on her end, considering the fact that the show hadn't given off that impression, or they just didn't do a very good job at it. By the way the scene played out, it seemed more the point of unveiling it right then and there, instead of having it have been a more noticeable constant throughout her on-screen time. And I think this definitely came at an unfortunate trade-off because similarly to Ironwood this season, Harriet's motivation seemed completely non-existent. As someone who has been keeping a keen eye on her this entire time, with more interest in her than the majority of other characters in play, her loyalty was always such an odd character trait that still didn't make sense. And this led to the viewers flowing down the path of least resistance and seeing a character with absolutely no motivation and a bad attitude being a very easy person to dislike. And unfortunately, the writers chose to play her character like this instead of taking us along on her journey and what she's been feeling in the moment. But now we have a situation where she believes her loyalty to Ironwood, who has escalated to unbelievable amounts of extremes, is still within her duty to be like Clover. The thing about Clover, though, is the involvement of Qrow. Part of the reason Harriet has been so excited to get her hands on Qrow is because she blames him for Clover's death. The unveiling of the truth about this does make sense with the episode's reveal, putting it in better context her hatred for him. Admittedly, she's very justified in where she's placing the blame. It doesn't seem that video footage was ever recorded of anything, so all she really knows aside from direct accounts as to what transpired by only Qrow is that his arrest was called for and it was his sword that impaled and subsequently killed Clover. From Harriet's perspective, it would make sense why she holds Qrow accountable for Clover's death. Equally, on the flip side, Qrow blames Ironwood for everything. His arguments are on much shakier grounds. We all saw what happened. Qrow chose to team up with Tyrion, a literal psychopath working for Salem, and the rest is history. Regardless of how weak it is, he blames Ironwood. And this led to some very interesting setup for the next episode. As good of a scene as it was between Harriet and Vine, as much as I believe they could have simply resolved it right then and there, because it would have been nice for the Aesops to have a little slice of development just for them, they resolved their own quarrels internally without any major influence from the main cast. I think things like that can be done and should be done more often. But nevertheless, Vine is now out of the situation and now we have Qrow and Harriet on a ship with a bomb about to explode. While I think we will and should get a fight between these two, I firmly believe and hope that the writers are going to pursue the path of a more grievance fight. They're both fighting for the sake of Clover. They're both saddened and grief-stricken over his death, and they both believe the other is to blame. Of course, in actuality, neither of them is to blame. Okay, Qrow's kinda to blame, but Tyrion's mostly to blame. But regardless, I'm hoping that after the two have exhausted themselves physically and emotionally, their quarrels will be put to the side and they can bond over the grievance of losing a friend. Because this season has really missed out on shared commonalities between both sides. I mentioned this literally in a video I made about Ironwood a few days ago, but everyone has been so divided over the menial things. Both sides didn't come together to fight Salem. They're both simultaneously working to save people, but not with each other. Everything seems so petty. And I always believed, even before learning that Harriet cared this much about Clover, that Clover's death should have been an event that unified both sides instead of dividing them. At least from the perspective of Qrow and the Aesops. And now we have that perfect opportunity. These two characters can duke it out in the meantime, but then they need to come to a resolution with Clover, in a very meaningful sense. It's what happens after that that I'm worried about. And this is where all you Harriet fans along with me can collectively gather and be worried together. Because if there's one overused trope that I absolutely despise, it's the redemption equals death. By sacrificing your own life, all past prior deeds and behavior are forgotten thanks to this one moment of good. It's a resolution I feared for Raven, and now it's become a resolution I fear for Harriet. Because within the lessons of learning what Clover would and wouldn't do, it's not hard to believe that Harriet would come to the conclusion that Clover would sacrifice himself and fly the bomb into the sky and explode it away from danger. The reason I'm not worried for Qrow is because he has plot armor. And it's the belief of sacrifice which I often think can work if done right, obviously. But also to use Clover as an example of how to act doesn't mean you have to die. If there's one thing I would hope Qrow does if Harriet tries to sacrifice herself is to try and save her, because Clover's death was very avoidable and perhaps he's come to form a new view on living and dying. But also I believe Harriet's death would come at yet another detriment to the Aesops as a whole. Losing Harriet to them would be just like losing Clover. By having her reunite with the others, it allows all of them to collectively set forth on a new path with a new outlook. Conceptually, I very much hate the sacrifice hypothetical, admittedly, mainly because it results in the death of Harriet. But while I believe the situation starts here, not to make a pun, but there proceeds to be a rabbit hole of situations that lead off how to deal with the bomb. Firstly, manual control is not needed because the ship already is in autopilot. You can simply autopilot the ship straight up and deal with it like that. The problem with this is apparently Watts can hack literally everything for some reason, even the hearing aid on an ant. So the problem right now is he's gained control of the payload and it's on an inevitable collision course with Mantle. But this is where I think, in the most ideal situation possible for me and also the story, to get a bit creative. I believe the best and most symbolic resolution to this story is Clover. Whether the bomb does or does not go off, Clover's luck exhibits one last act. The pin Qrow has been carrying, the four-leaf clover, the sharing of grievance between these two. It is Clover that will unite them and save them. If the bomb does go off, the two are obviously not on the ship, but Mantle has already been evacuated and no one dies. Or in the simpler sense, the bomb simply fails to detonate and it's a dud. Symbolically, I think this is the perfect knot to end off their story with. Luck is a hard concept to display, but it also allows for acts of miracles every now and then instead of coincidence, without it feeling too random. Aside from that, I don't have much else to say. Now, did this video spur because I'm a fan of Harriet? Undoubtedly, and there are a lot of viewers who don't like her, which is exactly the reason I needed to sway people. But genuinely, I do believe this to be the best resolution for all. I can only imagine my disappointment now when the actual episode airs and they do nothing of substance. But if they do this, you can bet I will sing its high praises. But for now, I kinda just wanted to speak about Harriet and what might happen. If you guys have any thoughts, any other ideas or situations, then be sure to let me know in the comments below. But until next time, I'll see you in the next video.